Welcome to T-Bone's Best of Roanoke show. Music, comedy, and conversation featuring HB, the Honey Badger.
Honey Badger don't care.
Now, on with the
show. Johnny, don't leave me. You said you'd love me forever. Honey, believe me. I'll have your heart on a platter. Might you recall? We've got a small family business, and the family won't like this. They'll bust your kneecaps. Ooh, wop-dee-doo, wop-dee-doo. They'll bust your kneecaps. Ooh, wop-dee-doo, wop-dee-doo. Johnny, you told me you were no fool, you were no chump.
Are you ready, HB?
I'm ready, T-Bone.
Are you ready, Megan?
I'm ready, T-Bone.
David?
Ready as ever.
Charlie?
Ready.
All right, let's get started. This is Radio Free Roanoke, and this is episode number 116, HB. We are in the belly of the beast, Thieves Honor Tattoo Parlor. It's brand new, 513 South Jefferson Street, here in beautiful downtown Roanoke. Let's meet the owners and the tattoo artists of residence here. Go ahead and start with you, please.
I'm Megan Zobel. I am married to our artist, David Zobel. I am basically the face of the shop. I'm the mouthpiece. I'm the one who talks to all the customers, gets you in the books and all the fun stuff like that. I do all the business.
You get us all comfortable when we come in here for the first time.
I do. I get you to tell me your stories.
All right, David.
All right, Dave Zobel, also owner, and tattooing since '99, so 23 years roughly. And little louder there, little louder, Honey Badger.
Yes.
All right, Honey Badger. Yeah, no, I'm tattooing since '99. I've been in the Lynchburg, Bedford, Roanoke area for the last 6 years or so. We also own a shop in Richmond called Carey Street Tattoo as well.
What street?
Carey Street Tattoo.
Carey Street, yeah.
Okay. Carey Street Tattoo. We've been running that now 5 years. We just celebrated our 5th year anniversary over there, and let the cat out of the bag about our Roanoke shop, and all the artists were super stoked and can't wait to make guest spots down here and hope that Mr. Charlie will come see them.
Absolutely. All right. And Charlie?
My name is Charlie Ortiz. I've been here like a few months. I've been tattooing in Hawaii before that for 7 years. And before that, in Austin, Texas for like 9 years.
Oh my.
Okay.
All right, so you got some
Well
art
traveled.
there.
Here 9.
Yeah.
Long time.
Long time. And
Yeah.
then tell me this. Let's go back. History. Art of tattoo's been around for thousands of years.
Easily. At
Easily.
least 8,000 documented.
And then I think the English kind of came in contact with it when James Cook was out in the South Pacific. Is that right?
Absolutely.
All right. And then who are some famous people who've been tattooed?
Well, speaking of the English, Queen Victoria.
What?
Really? Queen Victoria is rumored to have had a lion fighting a python tattooed on her.
Like her leg or?
It did not say where. Did not say where. I imagine it was something that she could cover.
She's
but
a
yeah.
queen. It's unmentionable.
Yeah.
No, tattoos and piercings were actually really popular in the Victorian society. So while it was still kind of publicly snubbed a bit, they secretly, lots of them had tattoos. So it's very popular tattooing and piercing in Victorian England.
Wow, and I heard too that it was almost, I'm sure it was always associated maybe with the military and maybe, I think they used to tattoo gladiators or deserters or different types of situations. But probably in the 20th century, at some point, it became more affordable where just about everybody could get a tattoo if they wanted one.
Yeah, in the early 1900s is when they started moving to electric tattooing.
Right.
So you had Samuel Riley creating the tattoo machine in 1891, which was based on like a Thomas Edison patent that had been filed in 1876, something like that. But the electric tattoo machine increased the speed. Prior to that, everything had been done by hand. So it was a very laborious process. But once the electromagnetic coil machine came into play in the early 1900s, then tattooing became more popular for, like you said, the sailors at the ports. Very big naval tradition for that. Very big in the carnivals as well. Coming out seeing the illustrated tattooed people was a big draw for a lot of folks. It was still kind of for military and for sort of outsiders and fringe culture in the early 1900s.
Right.
It didn't really become mainstream for, talking specifically in America, it didn't get mainstream until really the 70s. And that's really when like Janis Joplin broke into it. And when Janis Joplin got on the cover of Rolling Stone with her little butterfly tattoo, then every teenage girl in America wanted a butterfly tattoo.
They still do.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Charlie, you've done your share of tattoos. When people come to see you, is there a tattoo that's more popular than others?
It depends where I'm at. So in Hawaii, it's tribal. When you're talking about Captain Cook, I lived in that island where he landed. The Big Island. This Captain Cook is in Kona side.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a lot of Polynesian tribal over there. That's what we do a lot. And this depends where you're at. If I'm in, some parts of Dallas, Texas, I might be doing more black and gray script, Jesus portraits.
How about a Dallas star?
How about
Dallas
Dallas Cowboy star.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fan, so I'm not
it just depends where you're at. It's the type of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So location has a
location.
lot to do with it. Is there anything you won't do?
Yes.
Can you say it on the radio?
I don't like doing mandalas.
You can send them my way.
I send
Charlie,
them,
it's fine.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
They are because everything's got to match every side, so there's not a lot of room for any miscalculations or movements.
Yeah, since we're talking to the artist right here, right now, I got a question that I've always wondered about tattooing. Does a tattoo artist do his own tattoos, or do you always get someone else to do it, or how does that work? Because I just don't know. That's my question.
Personally, I'm a crash and burn type of learning person, so I've done my own.
Is that normal?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's fairly normal.
All right.
Yeah, usually coming up.
Yeah, there's some artists that don't, but like I did myself, and then like I would go to the meat market, like there's a Mexican meat market called the Michoacana, and I would get pig skins and thaw them out, and I practiced on those
Oh,
when I was
okay.
younger.
Yeah, I get it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then my friends also, and myself.
So you had this bug since early on.
But I've been an artist since I can remember. Like I went to a magnet high school,
Okay.
and I was taking art classes since I was a child. So I've been doing this my whole life.
So
And
this
I
is,
just
yeah,
fell into it kind of.
it's an extension of that.
Yeah, it's just another medium.
Yeah.
I'm using the machine.
And then you, David, you've been doing it since '99. Did it you just kind of gravitate toward it?
I actually started officially my apprenticeship in high school. So I was in my last 2 years of high school. And I mean, I've always been drawn to art. I always joke it's the one thing I'm good at. So it's really the one thing I started getting some positive feedback. It was my way of kind of negotiating different peer groups in school, and being able to kind of always have something on hand, whether it was kind of a social gathering or a party. I was kind of the nerd that always brought my sketchbook to the bar, even later on. But I got interested in tattooing. Really, my uncle started getting tattoos. And it was the first time I had really started seeing them up close. I kind of didn't grow up in a very tattoo savvy household. My father and parents still don't have tattoos. My uncle started getting tattoos, and I was doing a lot of artwork, and I had run my own airbrush stand at the time at one of the local flea markets.
All right.
And so he started getting tattooed, and he was getting a lot of tribal work. And honestly, I started looking at what he was getting and what he was paying for it, and I was very, interested in business at the time, and I could do that. Now, mind you, that was, 20 plus years ago, even then, so probably 25 or more.
Right.
The industry has come along massively since then.
Okay.
But at the time, there wasn't a lot of exposure like we have now. There wasn't the internet, there wasn't, being able to look at thousands upon thousands of artists, and all this sharing between different artists as well has really expedited the growth of the industry. But it was seeing his tattoos early on, and he was one of my first, tattoo victims, so to speak. I'd say client, but this is well before client days. But he was the guy that really inspired me to kind of do that. He's still, a big part, still comes around and gets tattoos as well. But yeah, that's what inspired me, was my uncle getting tattoos.
And you've got that shop in Richmond, and when I was doing my Wikipedia research last night, they indicated that Richmond was a heavy tatted city.
Yeah.
Lots of shops there.
Second or third most tattooed city in the United States.
So why is that?
So the way they calculated that is actually per capita. So it's shops per people.
Yeah. All right.
So it's a little bit of a skewed figure. But VCU is a very large, art college, and it draws a lot of people to the area. And there's something about, Richmond. It's kind of a old and new city, and that's one of the things we loved here about Roanoke, is that it had a lot of the old charm, but it still had a lot of the, newer, the nuances, you could tell it was up and coming and was doing a lot of good things. So, but there's so many art kids out there, and so many art school graduates that decide to open up there. We've seen an influx of a lot of people coming down from New York for a slower pace of life, but still kind of edgy. And really Richmond had a really big hardcore punk rock metal scene in the 80s and 90s, which drove a lot of tattooing. Back then, if you were to go into Richmond in the 80s and 90s, there was like 4 tattoo shops. Now there's well over 120.
No kid.
So there is, and you have Fort Lee, so they factor that in, not specifically just Richmond, but the Fort Lee, Colonial Heights, Petersburg are all really big military towns. So, you have a lot of the Army bases out there, and we're just a stone's throw away from Virginia Beach as well, where a lot of tattooing really spawned out of, in the early 1920s to 1950s. That was the big epicenter of tattooing as well.
Right.
So, but Roanoke, comparatively, did we figure it out, was about 20, 25, something like that in the whole Roanoke area?
Oh, I think it's like 15 years.
15 or 16.
No, well, anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to say, for y'all to hit Roanoke and splash where you did, you're in a great location. I mean, you're on Jefferson, you have a beautiful storefront. The inside of here is just unbelievable.
Tell us about what you've done here, Megan, inside.
So the building was built in between 1915 and 1917, from what we've gathered in our research. There's no definite date for that. And so what we wanted to do is sort of pay homage to the building. And sort of go with the more 20s, roaring 20s, when Roanoke was sort of at its height in the beginning of getting a lot of things coming around. We had the trains coming through the city and all that. So we went with a speakeasy feel, sort of that roaring 20s. I always say gentleman's club, but I'm thinking like British gentleman's club, but not like a strip club. So I want
more of a parlor.
A parlor, yes, if you will. So we kind of wanted to pay homage to, early Roanoke in the 1910s and 20s and 30s. So we kind of have the speakeasy vibe. We've gone with a lot of old vintage stuff in the items in the parlor, but still have a new feel to it, because we're in our second roaring 20s. We're in the 2020s now. So kind of giving it sort of an edge. So it's like the roaring 20s with an edge.
Well, they were coming out of a pandemic in a very difficult time as well. So, we're really seeing a 100-year pattern repeat itself in a way. So, the 20s were a huge era in the 1900s of, a return to sort of, getting out there and living life and, kind of enjoying things again. And we hope to kind of see that as we move forward, is that we can get back to life as normal, maybe a little different, but, still keep moving forward.
Right.
Well, let's get down to the nitty gritty here. Let's say I'm a newcomer and I walk in your front door and I'm very curious about getting a tattoo. I've never had one before. I've never been in a tattoo parlor before. Take me through the process. What would you do to work with me so I could walk out of here with a neat tattoo? I mean, what's the process like?
Well, first
you have like a book? I'll need to.
I just yell, Megan!
Megan!
First you talk to me, and we look at what some of the ideas of what you might have. So usually when somebody walks in, they know they want something.
Right.
They may not know exactly what they want, but they have an idea.
Okay.
So we'll go through what your likes and dislikes are, what kind of story you want your tattoo to tell, how large or how big of a commitment are you wanting to put into it. And then once we go from there and find out what your idea is, then we put you an artist where that falls within their wheelhouse. Luckily for us right now, both of our artists do pretty much everything, except Charlie doesn't like the mandalas, but outside
That's why I'm here.
but Dave doesn't mind. So, you know, some people will start with something small, and we will also talk about your budget, and we will work with you on that. So some people have a little bit of money to start with, so we may break the tattoo down into various stages where you only get the line work, then you come back and get the color, so it works within your budget. Because I think, for me, as someone who's not been in the industry as long as these guys have, I've always admired tattoo artists and tattoos in general. And I feel, and I think we all feel, that people should be able to tell their stories through art. And if the medium they choose is tattooing, we should make it available to those people.
It's a form of self-expression.
It really
Yes,
is.
yeah.
And then the next part of the step would be, I'll pass it over to Dave or Charlie to explain what the next step would be.
Well, first of all, let me finish up with you though, Megan. Is there like a book or something that the
So there
person could
used
look
to
at?
be
Or just
flash on the walls in all
Yeah.
the different tattoo parlors.
flash sheets or
As
something?
the flash sheets, Cherry Creek was the big thing. But as times progressed and in the digital age, most people use things like Pinterest or pictures they've seen online of tattoos, and you can kind of find everything digitally.
Okay.
We can kind of go from there.
All
We don't have the big flash sheets laying around, partially
don't-
because of COVID, because we don't want, cross-contamination and all those things, but also a lot of it's outdated. So we moved to a more digital platform.
Let me ask you this, Megan. The percentage of people that walk in the door and say, I know what I want and this is it, and I'm going with it. Is that rare?
No, I'd say
it's
honestly,
No?
So the scenario you initially described, where someone comes in and says, "What is this? A tattoo parlor? How do I get one of those?"
Yeah.
That's the rarity. Most people actually come in with a shopping list longer than their, wallet and body can afford. So, when they come in, a lot of what our job is to sort of sift through the ideas, find what's cohesive, or find a way to make them cohesive, and try to figure out how to get it into something they can afford. So, they'll come in with all these different things that are important to them, and we try to find the connections and filter it out a little bit. We usually call it a 50-pound bag of, we'll say sand. We'll say sand for this, but you've only got like a 5 pounds. You got 50 pounds of sand in a 5-pound bag is kind of what it is. I'm trying to edit it so it's messing me up.
Yeah, I got
But, everybody has a lot of ideas because there's so much exposure. So they're saying, I like this and I like that, but not everything goes together, You don't always, you like apples and you like steak. Sometimes that goes together well, but not every combination works well.
Yeah.
Usually apples and pork chop would be a little bit better.
Yeah.
I was going to say they didn't. I was like, man, maybe that could be good. I'm a little hungry. It's lunchtime. But no, most times people come in with some ideas on their phone. They come in with, some things thought out. But usually where they're wanting to go with it is often a little outside of what they're willing to do for it.
I see.
Collectors who come in who want bodysuits spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours alone, and it's not cheap to get tattooed. We try to make it affordable, but it still costs because we go to the farthest extents for safety, cleanliness, and quality.
Right.
And so when people come in and they say, I want this bodysuit, and they're coming with a picture from, some European artist where this client has spent just so much time and dedicated a portion of their life to it. And they want it done in an afternoon, so that's not always possible.
Right.
But oftentimes we can kind of show them what we can produce for them that is close as possible to what their desired effect is, but then also try to make that really geared towards them, try to find things that are meaningful for them, and some things that they're going to want to wear. So oftentimes it's a process of elimination, but then trying to kind of build it back up.
Okay. So once Megan helps me pick out something, she turns me over to you and Charlie. So my question to you two would be, okay, before we get started, how much is this going to hurt? Is it gonna hurt?
I always say it's not going to hurt me one bit.
I like it.
That's a good answer, Charlie.
Which
It just depends on the location of where you're getting
There's
it.
more sensitive areas.
Yeah, some spots are a lot more painful.
Okay. But it's not like it's gonna knock me out for a week.
No, you're not going to be. It's like the duration more. If it's a longer tattoo after a certain amount of hours, it starts to get more painful.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, and then location also.
Is there a preferred location? Like
There's
red-
popular locations.
All right, what's a popular location? A couple of popular.
Arms, legs. I'd say those are probably the most contemporary, but we're seeing a shift, a subtle shift in the last 10 to 20 years. In the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, very much the arms were a big part, the legs were a big part. Arms are one of the less painful areas. It's very common for like men to get tattoos on their arms so they can show their guns. Then sometimes they'll move on to leg tattoos. Most tattoos that women seem to get a little more popularly are actually on more painful spots. So lower backs, hips, areas that they can kind of cover and only show off when they have like a bathing suit on. That kind of plays in. Even the little ankle tattoos. I've got a guy I've done a entire bodysuit on, and when throat, everything. And when I tattooed his ankle, you would not believe just how he was like crawling out of the chair. So a lot of the popular areas for women to get tattooed are some of the more painful because they do actually have a higher pain threshold due to childbirth and things of that nature. They're predisposed to that. But now we're seeing a shift into more like collarbone tattoos, slightly off the shoulder, specifically going into areas that are just a little askew from where you would normally put it. And one thing I have to remember is that tattooing as a form of expression has always been a form of rebellion and individuality. So you have a generation of tattoo clients that they don't want what the last generation got. They want something different. If the last generation got bold line tattoos, they want fine line tattoos. So it's all about kind of making an individual mark for yourself.
There you go. And then if I came in here and let's say, let's look ahead 5 years, and I'm suffering from dementia. I can't remember my name. Could you tattoo my name on me somewhere, Charlie?
Yes.
I'm just thinking ahead.
We'll spell it on your toes. Matter of fact, I say we put T-bone on your feet. When you wake up. That's right.
At least mine is just two letters, HB.
That'd be one.
I was tattoo a steak on me.
Yeah, that's it. That's my name. All right. And then I read on Wikipedia again, 14% of the adult population in the USA have tattoos.
I think that's low.
You think that's low? And that was 2008.
Yeah. That's
definitely.
That was pre
Ink Master.
Yeah, that was pre-tattoo TV shows. Really, I would say pre-popularity when it comes to like Instagram and Facebook and all these things that really have shot up. Because what's happening is growth is accelerating. So, a small amount of growth then was maybe a 1-to-1. Now you're having, if I put a picture up on the internet from a tattoo I just did, instantly people can see it across the world, and so, more and more we're able to share and exchange information, but even more so it's like a collective, it's a collective mind. So, people everywhere looking for tattoos, there's so much out there, but you'll see stuff done, in Virginia that is being, mimicked, emulated, copied, however you want to say it, stolen and inspired by, all the way over in Australia or Japan or anywhere like that. And so trends happen faster now, because people see it more often. When Janis Joplin got her butterfly tattoo, you had to wait for those photos to be taken, for the magazine to come out, and then, for it was popularity, and eventually it kind of simmered down. Now there's a constant ongoing feed. When I wake up in the morning, one of the first things I do is check my Instagram feed and watch all the artists who, due to time zones and everything else, they've been tattooing all night while I was sleeping. So I wake up and immediately I'm like, I've been slacking. Look what they're doing in Europe. So
I gotta catch up.
Absolutely. So it's a very different culture now, and so I'd say from 2008 to 2021, are we in? You know, and those at 13 some years. So, you know, in the last 13 years, we've seen an explosion in popularity of tattooing. And so it definitely, the access to tattooing, tattoo artists, tattoo information, it's at an all-time high, I think, for, you know, for our civilization. That's for
And
sure.
just the acceptability of by society. Like, it's funny because I used to go on a bowling team with a bunch of older women, and one of them was 76 and she was getting her first tattoo. So you'll see people from the older generations finally saying, you know what, it's acceptable now. Nobody's going to judge me, or I don't care because I'm 76 years old.
Right.
And a lot of older people are starting
Well,
to get tattoos.
a
as well.
buddy of mine, he went in the Navy, and this was probably 15, 18 years ago. And he's in for 4 years. He's not hardly home at all. He comes home, and he says, you know, I wanted my mother to see me that I didn't get any tattoos, Mom. It didn't change me. But he said, my mom got a tattoo while I was gone. He's like, Mom. Well, gosh. So he's got some now. But anyway, it was just
I was
a great.
hoping that's the way it
was a
went.
fantastic story. It was so funny, you know.
Well, as we get ready to wind down here, let me just circle back to what you said there, Megan. Is there any age limit if a person wants to?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
yes, state of Virginia, I believe, is 16 with parental consent.
All right.
However, some artists won't tattoo anybody under the age of 18. So it's really dependent on the artist in the studio. But I believe it's 16 with the age with
Yeah.
parental consent. And then it involves, you know, birth certificate, proof of guardianship, all that stuff. It's a process.
Okay.
But also, even at that, there's a lot of artists who may tattoo at that age, but they may have a discretion on where those tattoos go. So a lot of artists I know won't do anything where a shirt like can't be covered by something as simple as a T-shirt,
Right.
because you know your ideas change as you grow older.
Right.
Right.
And your body changes significantly. When you get tattooed young, you know, the tattoos distort. And both in the way you grow, the skin stretches, you gain and lose weight. That all plays in, but also sun exposure over time. So generally, unless it's a memorial tattoo, something that has a lot of meaning, and also they're willing to put it in a place that's not visible, that's something that can be covered with a shirt sleeve or something like that. Then I'll, you know, usually talk to the parents and the kid, and if they're, you know, everything seems on board, we'll go ahead with it. But you know, we try not to don't do anything younger than 16.
Sure. And then as far as at the other end of the spectrum, there's really no age limit there, is there?
73 is the oldest I've tattooed.
Is that
Charlie, what's the oldest?
Charlie?
person you've tattooed?
92, and it was her first tattoo.
Whoa!
Yeah, her husband had just passed away. It was in Hawaii. So her husband had just passed away, and they came straight from the wake over, and her grandkids and her got a tattoo, a memorial tattoo.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, one last question, then I'll give you guys the final word. How long would it normally take for me to get an average tattoo?
That's one of them questions.
Yeah,
just very-
How much does it cost for a bag of groceries?
Right.
I
agree.
get you. All right, I get it.
Depends on what's in it.
Detail,
Yeah.
color.
All right. Well, I'll give each of you the last word. Is there anything I left out, or we left out, or
Yeah.
anything else you want to highlight?
Say something about your new business here.
Right? Everyone's speechless on.
We're really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I went to school here in Roanoke, and so I'm really glad to be back. I love the area and the mountains, and we've had some really great experiences with some of the local shops already, and we're glad to be part of the community.
Excellent.
All right. Anything else?
Come get a tattoo. Between the two of us here, we can do it all.
All right.
I believe it.
I believe it. Well, fantastic.
Thank you all so much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
having
much. Yes.
Man, oh man, very good.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, But then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried.
Thanks, JT.